Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of my video blog series. My name is Oindrila. I'm a full-time graduate student in environmental engineering at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I was revisiting my vlogs and I realized I'm not yet entitled to call myself a PhD student because I haven't yet appeared for my PhD candidacy exam. So in the US, you are still a graduate student unless you pass the PhD candidacy exam, which is where you defend your PhD proposal. For the program that I am enrolled in, I needed to pass another precursor to the PhD proposal defense, which is qualifier exam, and I had to pass it in my first year. After I passed my PhD candidacy exam, which I hope to do sometime in spring 2022, I will officially be known as a PhD student or a PhD candidate, and then I'll have just one more milestone to go, which will be my final PhD thesis defense, passing which I will earn the PhD or doctorate degree. So in today's vlog, I will take you through my week, which I call week -2, because we are 2 weeks away from starting the fall semester this year, and I am 2 weeks away from officially entering my 4th year as a PhD student in this program. Since the official semester starts on a Tuesday, which is 31st August, I decided I will probably upload my vlogs on Tuesdays, and my week will essentially be from Tuesday to Monday. I'm still struggling to decide whether I will upload every week or every other week, because I have a lot of things going on at my work-wise, and it is a lot of work to put up these vlogs. So still deciding, still figuring it out. I'm trying my best to structure these weekly vlogs the way I think will be structured, but I always feel I enter into too much details, which is probably not that necessary. So yeah, any recommendation, any suggestion is very welcome. Anything that will be exciting for you guys, please let me know in the comments if you have any recommendations for me. Without further ado, let's dive into the week. But before we go into the week, I generally sit down and make my agenda for the week. Since I'm working on multiple projects at this moment, it's very important for me to sit down and think through what I want to get done in the week. So let's get into the agenda first. So first thing in my agenda this week is to freeze dry my sediment sample for project number 1, which is the SERDIP funded project. So this is the sediment which we have mixed up from several sites, and we are planning to test all our passive samplers in. I'm going to first freeze the sediment sample in a vial and then freeze dry it over a couple of days until it loses all the moisture in it and reaches a constant weight. And then I'm going to freeze it again until I actually start my bulk sediment extraction process. In the bulk sediment extraction, we usually sonicate our sediment slurry, followed by filtering out the slurry into a vial, repeating this process 3 times, and then we concentrate down this entire extracted solvent close to 2 ml, do the copper treatment followed by the cleanup step, and then we finally evaporate our cleanup elute and then add our internal standard before we run them on the GC. The second thing on my agenda this week is for my PRC load batch experiments. So, this is the experiment where I'm basically trying to figure out the most efficient way of loading C13 PRCs into passive samplers, which is for my case polyethylene. PRCs are performance reference compounds. I did talk about that in episode number 2 of the series if you want to check that out. Just to give you an idea of the basic chemistry involved and the quantitative aspects involved in deciding which performance reference compounds to use. When we deploy our passive samplers in the field to get an idea of the concentration in the particular environmental media of the analytes we are looking for, which in my case is polychlorinated biphenyls or PCBs. It sometimes so happens that some of these analytes do not reach an equilibrium concentration with the surrounding media in the polyethylene sheet, and as a method of proof check, what we do is we preload our passive samplers with a known concentration of the same PCBs and track its rate of loss into the environmental media. We check the PRC initial before we deploy the samplers, and then again after the deployment has happened we measure the PRC final, and then we get mass loss of PRCs and we figure out the equilibrium concentration from that calculation by correcting the actual analyte concentration with this fractional loss of performance reference compounds. Since my work essentially involves PCB analysis, we have to make sure that the performance reference compounds that we choose are polychlorinated biphenyls which do not exist in the environment. Carbon, as you might know, which is a very integral part of any of these organic compounds like PCBs, has several isotopes. And carbon 12, C12 and C13 are the most stable isotopes of carbon. 12C carbon atom, it has an atomic mass of 12 and an atomic number 6, which essentially means it has 6 electrons divided between 2 shells. The first shell has 2 electrons, the second shell 4. 6 protons to balance out the negative charge. To make up the atomic mass of 12, the number of neutrons which are there in the nucleus of the carbon atom is therefore 6. For the carbon 13 isotope, atomic mass is 13, which essentially means the carbon 13 atom looks exactly like the C12, except the fact that it has 7 neutrons now instead of 6, and is thus heavier than the C12 atom. Now, when we choose the PRCs, a very effective way of choosing compounds or analytes which do not exist in the environment is to substitute all the carbon atoms in the PCB molecule with C13 carbon atoms instead of C12. Since carbon 13 is the less abundant isotope of carbon, it is very less probable that a PCB molecule made of C13 carbon will be available in the environment. When we load our passive samplers, which in my case is polyethylene, we do it in a batch of say 20 samplers. I'm just saying 20 because I'm assuming that I'll need 20 samplers for my experiments. From this batch, I will need to keep 10% of all the samplers that I load for my PRC initial measurement, and the rest of the 90% of the loaded samplers will be used for the actual experiments. So it is very important that all the samplers in the batch are loaded homogeneously. The PRC spiked in the loading solution is distributed homogeneously in all these 20 samplers, because otherwise the 10%, if the 10% of the samplers which are my PRC initials, say if they show me a concentration of 400 nanogram per gram, while the 90% of the samplers are loaded at 200 nanogram per gram, it is very probable that after the deployment, I might observe a negative PRC loss, which is absurd. So these PRCs, they come at very low volumes and at very high concentrations, and we spike volumes in the order of hundreds of microliters in a jar of 3 liters of a basic loading solution, which is usually either deionized water or methanol water mix. So there are so many variables which can go wrong when we have one specific aim of homogeneous distribution of these PRCs in all the polyethylene sheets that we are loading. And we want it to be time and cost efficient. We want to do as many polyethylene sheets in a batch, and we want to load it in a way that we use these PRCs, which are very expensive, by the way, get all of them into the polyethylene sheets and load them as effectively as possible. In this project, basically, I'm trying to look at these variables which can affect the homogeneous distribution of these PRCs and trying to figure out a way to do it effectively, basically. And the way we do it is run several batch experiments where we look at each of these variables one by one. I'm currently working on batch 5 of this experiment, where I had loaded 24 passive samplers from methanol water mix. In this week's agenda, I am going to do a homogeneity check of these samplers that I had loaded in batch 5 and see how they look basically after 2 weeks of loading. I'm going to finish the third extraction, evaporate them, and then run them on the GC after adding internal standard. The second thing for this project that I have to do is I want to revial some of my C13 PRCs, which is a new stock that I ordered a couple of days back. These PRCs, they come in sealed amber vials, and I want to put them in a separate capped vial so that I can use them as and when I want to. Third thing that I want to do is to finish the washing process of these new cutout PEs. Almost finished all the rinses on it. The last 2 methanol rinses need to be done. I'm washing 150 passive samplers this time, all in one place. Once they are clean and dried, I can put these back into the same loading solution that I have prepared for my batch 5. Last but not the least, I want to finish my sample processing of my Christina River samples. So this is a pilot scale bioremediation project which involve checking the background contamination in the site before the treatment of bioremediation and tracking the effect of the bioremediation several weeks after the treatment, and keep on tracking the impact that the treatment actually had for months after that. So currently I'm working on deployment 4 from the same site, for which I will need to do some PRC initial measurements and some surface water and pore water. This week I want to finish all the extractions. I think I have the last extraction left on all of them, and then I'm going to run the PRC initials and check whether the GC3 needs any calibration, and I also want to do the copper treatment on the pore water and surface water samples. So yeah, let's get into the week now. Last weekend, I was visited by a very close friend from my school days and his girlfriend. We drove up to the Misty Mountains to a place called the Spruce Knob in West Virginia. We stayed there in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, deep inside the temperate mountain forests for the first 2 days. Hiked several little trails overlooking the Blackwater Falls and camped for the rest of the 2 nights. It was raining the entire weekend, and the mist, coupled with a very limited cellular network with little or no internet connection, was ever so refreshing. Being away from my family has made me feel very lonely at times in the last year. This time spent with a close school friend made me feel as close to home as one can feel in such times. So I just finished all the extractions, and my C13 PRC extracted solvents are getting evaporated, and while I evaporate that, I'm going to revial my new PRC set of solutions. And I just found that there are some extra PRC vials. I'm not sure whose those are. I didn't order those, so I'm going to ask around in the lab maybe later today. And we could probably store all of it in one vial. Yeah, but for now I'll just put my set in a new vial. This is how we generally store our calibration standards or stocks. I don't know if you can see it properly. We label them, and we seal the top with paraffin, and we always mark it after every time we take out a certain volume, so that we can keep track of how much was there the last time, so that if there is any evaporation we can track that. Tracking the evaporation is very important because it will alter the concentration at which the calibration solution is right now. Since we store these solutions for our use, it's important we keep marking this level. So I just finished adding internal standards to my samples, and I put them for the run. And now it's around 6:50 and I'm going to head home, make dinner, all of that good stuff. Today is Wednesday, it's August 18th, and as you can see, I am feeling dead inside. I look super tired and I'm totally burnt out. I have no idea what's going on. I think after the camping trip, my body is just dead. It's refusing to cooperate with my brain. Like, my brain is super fresh, but my body is super tired. I think I need some good amount of sleep. Even though I have slept like 8 hours last night, I think I need more sleep. I need a day in bed basically. But for now, I have so many things piled up that I cannot afford to rest for a weekday. So there is some good news. I have been struggling with loading PRCs into polyethylene for about 5 months now. It seems that this time, the latest batch that I have loaded has been loaded pretty homogeneously. At least I have something good this week. I think I should go back now. There is a tornado coming apparently. I'm going to evaporate my Christina River samples from 60 ml to 1 ml, the activated copper treatment on them, and leave them on the shaker overnight so that I can do the cleanup step. The last methanol rinse of my polyethylene sheets that I am washing, and then I'm going to run the PRC initials for the Christina River samples today, just to check if the method on the GC/CD is working fine. I haven't used that instrument in a while, so if anything goes wrong, I can probably fix that before I run my actual samples on them. Freeze dry one of my sediment samples. This is for my Sediment project. I just want to check the background levels of PCBs in it before I do any polyethylene extractions. So yeah, I think that's about it, if I'm not wrong. Let's get started. So I'm waiting for this to go down to here. Then I'm going to press vacuum, and then this will go down to here. And then I'm going to attach my samples in this long beaker and put them here. And then I'm going to start the vacuum by turning these knobs. So it's going to get freeze dried. My samples, you see the coils are getting cold. And now I'm going to put my samples on this. I'm going to leave this bottle that I did the solvent exchange in open overnight, but I'm scared to keep it fully open, so I'm going to perforate this coil. Yeah, you can see. So, and then so I just put my jar right here because I don't want it to come in the way of anybody working in the fume hood. So I'll come back and look at you on Monday, maybe tomorrow, day after tomorrow. It usually takes a couple of days to fully dry the polyethylene. And now I'm going to check on my samples. All my bottles are punctured, so I just realized that it has evaporated around a little bit, but these are fine, so hopefully it's okay. I don't have to run these samples again. Today is Monday. I am at the lab at around 10:37 right now. I'm planning to do some rearrangement with my office space. I'm planning to switch over from that space, that cubicle, to this cubicle right here. We have new students here who will join us very soon, so I'm going to make space for them. This one has more space here, so I have too many things going on with my small space, so I'm going to transfer my stuff. My research has been slow, firstly with the pandemic lockdown, and secondly with certain unplanned hurdles on the way of my experiments. I've often felt very anxious and dejected with myself, considering how slow my progress was. I should have been able to complete my candidacy exam by now, but I haven't. Students in other labs who started the program at the same time as me has made so much more progress. These thoughts have kept me awake at most nights since the last couple of months. This week in particular, I was struggling with overcoming my mental fatigue and training my body to get back into the groove of working longer hours at the lab. The weekend trip had definitely refreshed my brain cells, but my body was still in the state of an inertia of rest. This is probably not the first time I've opened up about the failures I face at my research, and is definitely not going to be the last time either. I consider it is quite important to become aware of things as they are and build a certain form of acceptance of your surroundings once you plan to achieve something big in life. After all, an achievement in the right direction is also going to make you feel rewarded in the highest possible way. And that is what we are here for. An application to a PhD program is often quite luxurious when viewed on the website of the school, and there is nothing wrong with that. It is meant to be that way. I guess the purpose of this vlog is not to scare you off or demotivate you, but quite the contrary, to give you a more decentralized view of how things look at a grassroots level, to help you build that armor of acceptance and feel more validated when you feel the way you feel. It is so important to understand that everybody's research problems and the ways of their dealing with it are unique. The kind of scenarios I have faced in my research arose because very specific variables came together to create a permutation that no one else in the lab had ever faced before. I guess what I'm trying to say is I would never understand why a particular combination of variables in my research worked unless I failed at the multiple other combinations of them. The last year in its entirety has taught me that art of patience when something is not going as planned. When I have been more frustrated than I could handle, I have often sought refuge in hobbies that are not actively related to my work, like art or music or writing blogs. I realized that these were very positive ways of distracting myself in a direction that prevented me from having thoughts of giving up.